Hello everybody, I am Ace and today I'm back with a brand new video. Today we are reviewing episode 4 of series 11, Arachnids in the UK. I'm very excited to talk to you guys about this one. And I'm going to do things a bit differently. I'm only going to touch upon the story very briefly because I feel like there's a lot more in depth I can talk about in terms of characters, best and worst moments. This episode included a lot that can actually be harshly judged in good and bad ways. So I feel like the story at the moment isn't the most relevant. You all know it, you've all seen it. But yeah, let's just talk about in general characters. The 13th Doctor here, absolutely brilliant. I thought she's getting better. Jodie Whittaker is getting better as a Doctor. I wasn't 100% sure from episode 1. I think episode 2 I was like, oh yes, that's the Doctor. And then episode 3 I'm like, oh, she's doing it well. She's got a good mix of serious and comedic here. And then episode 4 she brings it home. I really think she did a good job, not only at the more emotional moments, but also the comedic timing. She's brilliant at that, and I'm really getting a strong Matt Smith vibe from her, which is definitely not a bad thing, by the way. Matt Smith is one of my favourite Doctors, so for me to even compare Jodie to Smith, I think is a massive compliment. I really am loving her performance at the moment, and I'm just hoping that by the end of the series we can kind of get a round circle of she can be very comedic, but hopefully at the end she can have some very serious and more emotional territory of lines. We've had some emotional moments already, yes, but nothing too striking. If you include obviously like Rosa, but I mean, if something happens to one of the companions towards the end of the series, I want her to have a really emotional scene. I want her to really feel something. It seems like we're going to get that because from the trailer, obviously they had the moment where she kisses her hand and then walks back into the light. So that's going to be a bit of a weird one. I wonder where that's going to play in. But I'm still very interested to see where this is going because, quite frankly, I'm really enjoying her performance, but it really needs to go round circle for it to pay off well. If you know what I mean, that might sound really complicated, but yeah, I really am liking it. I'm getting vibes of Eccleston, Tennant, Smith, I'm getting just vibes of everyone. I really am loving that in her performance. Next, we're going to talk about the companions. I really love the companions in this. Again, I'm liking them even more the more I see of them, and I think, again, a standout, which is a standout for a lot of people, is Graham, and we're going to talk a little bit more about him now, because obviously the big spoiler of the episode was that Sharon D. Clarke does play a role in this. She appears as part of a figment of Graham's imagination, portraying her role of Grace, of course. And it was quite sad. I kind of felt a bit of emotion there, and I felt that, especially in Bradley Walsh's performance. I mean, bloody hell, I'm loving him as a companion. Like, it was very risky at first, because a lot of people were like, oh, he's just the guy from The Chase, and I thankfully wasn't about that. But seeing him on this is like, I don't even associate him with Bradley Walsh. I'm associating him with the character of Graham, and that is partially down to Bradley Walsh. It's also partially down to the wonderful work of Mr. Chris Chibnall, because Chibnall has done a wonderful job, and he always has, especially with Broadchurch, of creating new and bright and wonderful characters, and I feel like he is able to give characters a good arc, make them feel realistic, make them feel homely. Moffat was always good at doing spacey wacy stuff, connecting to the show's history, and he was always very good at doing that sort of thing, especially with the Doctor. But Chibnall feels more like a mix of a bit of Moffat, but quite a lot of Russell T Davies in that element. I feel like Russell T Davies was excellent at being able to create something that was very realistic and a family type driven thing, whereas Chibnall's doing that but on a very elevated emotional scale. Like, he's not making everything a comedic moment, but he is mixing a good amount of comedy with a good amount of serious in terms of bringing the characters together. I think the moments with Graham alone in his flat, in his house even, was really emotional, and I think although people could argue why were those scenes there, I think the moment at the end where he says to the Doctor, he's like, the reason I want to come is because I don't want to sit alone in my house grieving. And I really like that, because it kind of showed that showed reason for those scenes with Grace. It showed reasons to show that and show his emotion there, because he doesn't want to be alone. He's never been alone since Grace passed away. He's always been with someone. The Doctor's always been there. Ryan's always been there. Yaz has always been there. And now they've all got an excuse to leave. Graham doesn't want to be by himself, and I really like that. I really like that, actually. So yeah, very happy with that. I think Yaz came into her own a little bit more. I'm glad to see more of her and her family. Still think she needs a little bit more development. She does feel a little bit flat at the moment. I think Ryan's just the same. I like the moment that he had to read a little bit of a letter from his dad, and I like the moment between him and Graham. They're establishing something there now that, you know, we're talking about by the end of the series he's going to call him Grandad. The fact that he said, like, I don't like how my dad said proper family. associating and kind of inferring that Graham is proper family, despite not being blood related to Ryan. And I really, really like that, so that's good. Family and friends as well. There was a lot of bits of Yaz's family I really liked. I really liked the person who played Yaz's mum. I really liked the person who played Yaz's family, mum, dad and sister. I think they were all very fun and enjoyable. I love how they were all questioning. I think like Yaz's mum, for example, questioning that every new person she sees Yaz with is like, are you with them? When she said, are you with, like, are you, like, asking the doctor, are you with my daughter seeing? It was one of those things that I was like, in my head, back of my head, is like, there's going to be a few people on Twitter who are screaming with joy. But yeah, no, I like how there was an association between that. I love how she was being very motherly. She was quite background, which was also quite focused as well. So I'm hoping to see more of her in the future. I got a lot of vibes from, I got a lot of vibes from Series 1. I've talked about this before. You know, the series starts off with the first episode in Earth on modern day. Something big happens. Companion comes with the Doctor. Episode 2, they go to the future. Episode 3, they go to the past and meet a famous historical figure. And episode 4, they come back, and I think this is kind of a mix of Aliens of London and World War 3, just on a much smaller scale, where they go back, they meet the family's like, who are you, why do you know my daughter, and then right at the end, the companion snakes off from their family saying they'll be right back, and I really, really like that. You know, Yaz is like, oh yeah, I'll tell you all about the Doctor when I'm back. I'm thinking, she's off to go in with the Doctor now, and I really, really like that. So yeah, there was a lot of basic elements there, the story, and everything about that. I really liked the family and friends, and I really liked their element of it. And again, feeling like a Russell T Davies era episode. Thoroughly loved it. I think they all did a great job. Jack Robinson was the villain, who, I think that's his name anyway. I don't actually know his name because it's only mentioned a couple of times, but I think Chris Noth did a great job with this. I just felt like he was written to be Donald Trump. There's a mention of Donald Trump in this, because we know Donald Trump exists in the Doctor Who universe anyway, but it did just feel like Trump. I mean, the character was inferred to have a rivalry with Trump, but he's almost exactly the same. He's like a political commentary for Trump. I've not got a problem with that. I think it's all well and good making fun of people who are allowed to be made fun of. You know, Donald Trump has been the subject of many impressions, jokes from the BBC, ITV, comedy game shows and stuff. Loads of people do impressions and stupid stuff about him, but this was a bit... I liked it. I liked his character. I think it was a bit on the nose of the gun thing. I think he was a bit of a pain. And I liked the fact that him and the Doctor didn't get on. You know, it kind of contrasted from what Harriet Jones was, the political figure from the first series that the Doctor bumped into. But she was helpful, she was good, whereas this one wasn't at all. The one thing I really wasn't happy with in this was that he didn't get any comeuppance. He was a bit of a pain in the backside throughout the whole episode. The Doctor and him didn't have any agreements. He was portrayed as the bad guy of this, in a way, and he didn't get comeuppance at all. He just disappeared and snaked off, and presumably is still running for president to this day. Now, my big question there is, will he come back? Every villain this series has disappeared and just presumed to be gone. I mean, like that Art Malik guy, the guy Art Malik played in episode 2, Ghost Monument, he just disappeared. Tim Shaw, of course, just teleported away. And Krasko was just that back in time. No one's died and no one's kind of served a comeuppance yet for what kind of travesty they've caused. And if they continue doing that, I hope it's for a reason. I hope to Christ they bring them back at the end of the series, because if they don't, then there's a risk that you could be portraying it off as the 13th Doctor can't really do anything, and she's just letting them get away with it, because it's only a little thing, it's not a big thing, it's not ruining my enjoyment of the episode, but I feel like his character especially should have had his comeuppance, as well as a few other villains. And I know a few people have mentioned this before as well, with the whole that all the villains just keep disappearing, presumably to appear again in either a future series or at the end of this series. I hope something like that happens, because I feel like he has more story to be told. I feel like Jack Robinson could appear again, as you know, he's running for president, so he's a big, important, and famous character in the world of Who. Obviously, seeing Graham's reaction to the character being there, it's an interesting one, and I think it could be explored in more detail. I just think it's a shame that he didn't get his comeuppance, or even a final scene. He just kind of shot that giant spider and then waltzed off, and that was it. The spiders in this episode were great. I really, really love the horror aspect of it. I finally get to talk about this now. I really, really like the spiders as villains. I'm a bit disappointed there wasn't a mention of the previous encounters with spiders, aka the Arachnids, aka the Planet of the Spiders, you know, Pertwee's final story. It's such a shame there wasn't a mention of that, especially with Chris Chibnall being a previous classic Who fan. But overall, as villains, I think they worked. They were scary. I mean, they were like really creepy. Like, I mean, I haven't got arachnophobia, but I was like, oh no, I don't like that, you know. So for someone who does have arachnophobia, I have to ask Cooper because I know he does. I'll get in contact with him soon, actually. But I'm pretty sure he must absolutely hate that whole idea of spiders and the way they look and the way they moved. Were really creepy. The only slight issue I do have is the giant spider. For me, it looked a bit too obviously CGI. I thought it was not the most impressive looking thing, but I thought the little spiders, the ones that weren't massive, looked decent, looked quite scary, and looked quite, I don't know, just quite eerie to look at. And yeah, overall thoughts. Bits I liked, bits I didn't like. I liked the spiders, I thought they were creepy. I liked the idea of them, I loved the webs, I loved the practicality of the webs, how they weren't CGI, and the only thing that was CGI were the spiders, and I really, really liked that. I thought they looked great, I thought it was quite a creepy atmosphere. A couple of gripes I do have, though, is the music. I mean, not this Sega Nakanola music, may I point out, the music that Ryan used to lure the spiders. I thought it was a joke at first, and then I thought, like, this takes me away from the scariness of it. There's some great, really creepy shots of the spiders coming down the hallway, like really, like loads of them, and it was quite creepy, but the music just dragged me right out of that, and I was like, nah, this doesn't work for me. I thought it was a funny joke at first of him going like, blah, blah, but I was hoping, like, for me, I feel like classical music would have been a lot creepier, or like a kind of nursery rhyme kind of tune on like a little, it would have been scarier, and having that be the thing that appeals to the spiders would be so creepy, because you'd have that weird music boxy type tune playing over hundreds of spiders marching into this one room. It'd be a lot creepier and a lot more effective horror wise than some modern loud bass, but I suppose that's because I'm not into that type of music that it kind of dragged me out of it a little bit. But yeah, that was one thing that kind of dragged me a little bit. It wasn't a massive thing, but I was just thinking in my head, like, this could work so much better with some weird, creepy, classical music a little bit more. But yeah, things I do like. I really, really, really liked the shot of the time vortex. I'm never going to stop going on about this. When they showed that, I was like, so I kind of guessed that was what had been redesigned, but I was like, maybe they'll show a little bit of it. The shot from like the TARDIS at the side, and then like spinning through the vortex, and then it was like sort of, the vortex was like winding with so many different colours and effects, and then it went into this big sort of circular hall type thing, really, with loads of different time holes that you could kind of go through. I love that design, and I think it must be John Smith VFX who's made that as well, because that was so impressive. I was blown away by that, quite frankly. I was absolutely flabbergasted when I saw that. I was like, oh my god. Like, usually in the past what they've done is they've used bits of like the vortex they use in the opening sequence as part of the vortex that the TARDIS travels through when it's going somewhere, but they didn't this time. They actually made it cinematic. There was a shot as well where it went into the TARDIS roof and it went through a few like pink and bright like orangey layers before it actually came above the TARDIS console. An amazing continuous shot. Absolutely loved it, and if you don't agree with me, you need to watch that scene again, because I feel like even the people who criticise the show cannot deny that scene was absolutely gorgeous. And I suppose one final gripe I want to just get out there really, really quickly is that overall, the episode, I felt just came to a bit of an abrupt stop. I felt like they were going somewhere, they trapped the spiders in the room of the hotel, they had this moment where that Jack Robinson guy, or Trump, whatever, killed the giant spider and then waltzed off, and the 13th Doctor was having an emotional moment, and she was like, yeah, I was expecting like a plan to come up then, bad guy gets his comeuppance, something happens to the spiders where maybe 13 takes them to an alien planet or something, I don't know, something odd like that would have been a bit more conclusive, but I felt like it just ended, and then it went back to the flat, and I'm thinking, but what about the spiders? Are you just going to leave them in this hotel? Locked in that room? Are you going to just... Because, I mean, someone will eventually find that. So surely something will have to come of that again, but it just seems really, to me, it just seems a bit irresponsible just to leave a room full of kind of deadly spiders just in this room, which will eventually obviously run out of power if the hotel is no longer being funded. Just seemed a bit odd to me, to be honest with you, but hey ho, you know, I'm happy with it. I thought the story was decent, I thought the characters were great, I thought it was a very thoroughly entertaining episode. I love the VFX work, I love the music, I love everything about this new series, and I'm really, really looking forward to next week. So, but yeah, so all of that considered, overall I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. I think it's a fair score. It's a one that I think is just my initial reaction because I had a few gripes, and if I have a few gripes, it can't match the other ones that I thought were almost immaculate. So yeah, still a pretty good episode, but with a few minor little flaws that dragged it away from me. But yeah, tell me what you thought in the comments below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you all in the next video. Thank you all so much for watching. Bye bye.